My name is Sarah Chen, and I'm telling you this story because I need someone to know what happened, what's still happening. They say the dead can't hurt you, but they're wrong. The dead don't just hurt you, they replace you. It started 3 months ago when my mother was dying. Cancer had eaten through her lungs like acid, and the morphine had loosened her tongue in ways that terrified me. She kept talking about things that never happened, people who didn't exist. At least that's what I thought. I was sitting beside her hospital bed, watching the monitors beep their mechanical lullaby, when she grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. Her fingers were bone thin, but they dug into my skin like claws.
Sarah,
She whispered, her voice like rustling leaves.
I have to tell you about your sister.
I almost laughed. I'd been an only child my entire life. My parents had tried for years to have another baby after me, but it never happened. This was just the morphine talking. "Mom, I don't have a sister," I said gently, trying to pry her fingers loose. Her eyes snapped open then, more lucid than they'd been in weeks.
You had 2 sisters.
She said. "You were triplets." The word hit me like a physical blow. Triplets. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, for her to drift back into her medicated haze. But she didn't. "2 of you died," she continued, her voice growing stronger, more urgent. "Complications during birth. The cord was wrapped around their necks. You were the only one who survived." I felt like I was drowning. My entire life, my entire identity was built on being an only child. The lonely kid who desperately wanted siblings. The teenager who felt like something was missing. The adult who still felt incomplete, like I was only part of a whole. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. Her grip tightened. "Because we buried them," she said. "But burial doesn't always mean gone." She died 2 days later. I held her hand as she slipped away, and her last words were barely a whisper. "Don't let her take your place." I thought she was delirious. I thought it was the morphine and the cancer and the fear of death playing tricks on her mind. I was wrong about that too. After the funeral, I went through my mother's things, hidden in the back of her closet behind boxes of Christmas decorations that hadn't been used in years. I found a small wooden box. Inside were 2 tiny hospital bracelets, yellowed with age. One read, "Baby Girl Chen A." The other, "Baby Girl Chen B." I was baby girl Chen C. There were also photographs, Polaroids that looked like they'd been taken in secret. 3 tiny bodies in incubators, impossibly small, impossibly fragile. 2 were perfectly still. One was moving, crying, alive. Me. At the bottom of the box was a death certificate. Only one. It was for baby girl Chen A. There was nothing for baby girl Chen B. I called the hospital, but records from 32 years ago were either lost or sealed. I hired a private investigator, but he came up empty. It was like baby girl Chen B had never existed at all. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. The first time I saw her, I was brushing my teeth. It was a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after the funeral. I was exhausted, still grieving, my mind foggy with sleep and sorrow. I looked up at the bathroom mirror and she was there, standing behind me. She had my face, exactly my face. Same dark hair, same brown eyes, same small scar on my chin from when I fell off my bike at age 7. But there was something wrong with her expression. Something hungry. I spun around, my heart hammering against my ribs. The bathroom was empty. When I looked back at the mirror, she was gone. I told myself it was grief, stress, the mind playing tricks. I made an appointment with a therapist. 3 days later, I was at my favorite coffee shop, trying to work on a presentation for my job at the marketing firm. The place was crowded, filled with the usual mix of college students and remote workers. I was deeply focused on my laptop when I felt eyes on me. I looked up. Across the room, sitting at a corner table, was a woman who looked exactly like me. She was wearing the same blue sweater I was wearing. Her hair was styled the same way. Even her posture was identical, but she was staring at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Her lips were curved in what might have been a smile, but her eyes were cold and calculating. I blinked, and she was gone. I asked the barista if she'd seen the woman at the corner table. "What woman?" she said, looking confused. "That table's been empty all morning." I started seeing her everywhere, in store windows as I walked by, in the reflection of my computer screen at work, in the back seat of my car when I checked the rearview mirror. Always watching, always wearing my face, always with that same hungry, predatory expression. I started avoiding mirrors. I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel. I turned my laptop screen away from me when it went dark. I took different routes to work to avoid storefront windows. But she found me anyway. The security cameras at work caught her first. My boss called me into his office on a Thursday afternoon, his face grim. "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." He turned his computer screen toward me. On it was security footage from the night before. The timestamp showed 2:47 a.m. The office was dark, empty except for the cleaning crew who had left hours earlier. And there I was, walking through the corridors. Except it wasn't me. I was at home at 2:47 a.m., asleep in my bed. I had the timestamps from my home security system to prove it. But the woman in the footage looked exactly like me. She moved like me. She even had the same small limp in her left leg that I'd had since a car accident in college. But she was doing things I would never do. She was going through my coworkers' desks, reading their personal files, taking photos of confidential documents with her phone. She was learning about my life, my job, my relationships. And at the end of the footage, she looked directly at the camera and smiled. It was my smile, but wrong. Too wide. Too knowing. "I don't know what to tell you," I said to my boss, my voice barely above a whisper. "That's not me." He looked at me for a long moment, and I could see the doubt in his eyes. "Sarah, I've known you for 5 years. You're one of our most trusted employees. But this footage is clearly you. If you're having some kind of breakdown, we can get you help." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him about the mirrors, about the woman who looked like me, about the sisters I never knew I had. But I knew how it would sound. I knew he'd think I was insane. Maybe I was. That night, I came home to find my apartment had been broken into. But nothing was missing. Instead, things had been moved, rearranged. My clothes were hanging in different orders in my closet. My books were reshuffled on the shelves. My toothbrush was in a different spot on the bathroom counter. Small changes, intimate changes. The kind of changes someone would make if they were trying to make the space feel more like theirs. I called the police, but they found no signs of forced entry. The locks were untouched. The windows were secure. The security system showed no record of anyone entering or leaving. But I knew someone had been there. I could feel it in my bones. The air itself felt different, contaminated somehow. I decided to take a shower to wash away the feeling of violation. The hot water felt good against my skin, and for a moment I allowed myself to relax. Maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe the stress of my mother's death had finally broken something in my brain. But as I stepped out of the shower, I saw something that made my blood freeze. In the steam on the bathroom mirror, someone had written a message with their finger. Soon. The letters were perfect, precise, written in my handwriting. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room with all the lights on, a baseball bat across my lap, jumping at every sound. I kept thinking about what my mother had said.
Don't let her take your place.
Take my place. What did that mean? As the sun rose, I made a decision. I was going to find out the truth about my sisters. All of it. I drove to the cemetery where my parents were buried. It was a small, quiet place on the outskirts of town, surrounded by old oak trees that whispered secrets in the wind. I found my parents' graves easily enough. 2 modest headstones side by side, already weathered despite being only a few months old. But I wasn't looking for them. I was looking for 2 smaller graves, 2 tiny markers that should have been there for 32 years. I searched for hours, walking up and down the rows, checking every corner of the cemetery. I found graves for infants, for children, for people who had died decades ago. But I found nothing for baby girl Chen Ye or baby girl Chen Bi. It was like they had never existed. I was about to give up when I saw him. An elderly man in groundskeeper's clothes, tending to a grave about 50 yards away. He looked like he'd been working there for decades. I approached him carefully. "Excuse me," I said. "I'm looking for some graves from 1991, 2 infant girls named Chen." He looked up at me, and I saw recognition flash in his eyes, then fear. "You're one of them," he said, his voice barely audible. "You're one of the Chen girls." "I'm Sarah Chen," I said. "I'm looking for my sisters." He shook his head slowly. "No, miss, you're looking for trouble." He started to walk away, but I followed him. "Please," I said. "I need to know what happened to them." He stopped and turned back to me. His face was pale, almost gray. "Only one of them was buried here," he said finally. "The other one." He shuddered. "What about the other one?" I pressed. "She was born different," he said. "Born wrong. The doctors said she was dead, but she kept moving, kept breathing. They didn't know what to do with her, so they gave her to the medical college for research." My heart stopped. "Research?" "She died there eventually," he said quickly. "At least that's what they told your parents." But I always wondered. I always wondered if she really died, or if she just learned to hide. I drove to the medical college in a daze. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. Baby girl Chen B hadn't died at birth. She had been taken away, experimented on. What had they done to her? What had she become? The medical college was a sprawling complex of brick buildings and glass towers. I found the records department and explained what I was looking for. The clerk was helpful, but apologetic. "I'm sorry, but records from that era are classified," she said, "especially anything related to research subjects." But as I was leaving, she slipped me a piece of paper. On it was a name, Dr. Elizabeth Morrison. Below that, an address. Dr. Morrison lived in a small house on the edge of town. She was in her 70s now, retired from the medical college for over a decade. When she opened the door and saw me, her face went white. "My God," she whispered, "you look just like her." "Like who?" I asked, though I already knew. "Like Subject B," she said. "Please come in. I think it's time someone knew the truth." Dr. Morrison made tea with trembling hands. She kept glancing at me as if I might disappear at any moment. "She was supposed to be dead," she said finally. "Born without a heartbeat, no brain activity, no reflexes. But she kept breathing, kept moving. It was impossible, but it was happening." "What did you do to her?" I asked. Dr. Morrison's face crumpled. "We were young, ambitious. We thought we could learn something from her, something that might help other children. We ran tests, took samples, tried to understand what made her different. And she grew," Dr. Morrison said. "Despite everything, she grew. But she was wrong inside. Empty ... Like she was missing the part of her that made her human. She learned to mimic emotions, to copy behaviors. But there was nothing real behind it." I felt sick. "What happened to her?" Dr. Morrison looked out the window, as if she expected to see someone watching. "She escaped," she said quietly. "When she was 12 years old, she just disappeared from the facility. We found the night security guard dead in his chair. Heart attack," the coroner said. "But his face..." She shuddered. "His face was frozen in absolute terror. She's been out there for 20 years, Dr. Morrison continued. Learning, watching, waiting. I always wondered when she would come back for you." "Come back for me?" I asked. "She was obsessed with you," Dr. Morrison said. "Even as a child, she knew she had a sister who was living the life she should have had. She used to draw pictures of you, though she had never seen you. They were perfect, absolutely perfect, like she could see you through some invisible connection. I thought about the woman in the mirrors, the security footage, the break-in. She wasn't just watching me. She was studying me." "What does she want?" I whispered. Dr. Morrison met my eyes. "She wants to be you," she said. "She wants to take your place in the world. And she's patient enough to wait until she knows everything about you. Every detail, every mannerism, every relationship." As if summoned by our conversation, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my own name, Sarah Chen. I answered with shaking hands.
"Hello, Sarah,"
said a voice that was exactly like mine.
"We need to talk."
Dr. Morrison grabbed my arm. "Don't listen to her," she whispered. "Don't let her in your head." But the voice on the phone continued.
"I know you've been looking for me. I know you found the truth about what happened to us, but you don't know the whole truth."
"What truth?" I asked, despite Dr. Morrison's frantic head shaking.
"The truth about which one of us is real,"
she said.
"Meet me at the old medical college tonight. Building C, basement level. Come alone and Sarah."
"What?" I whispered.
"Bring the photographs."
The line went dead. Dr. Morrison was shaking her head violently. "You can't go," she said. "You don't understand what she's capable of." "I have to," I said. "This has to end." "It will end, Doctor," Morrison said grimly, "but not the way you think." She went to a drawer and pulled out a small vial filled with clear liquid. "If you insist on going, take this." "What is it?" "Something we developed during the research," she said. "It's designed to disrupt the neural pathways that allow her to do what she does. But Sarah, you have to understand, if you use this, there's no guarantee you'll survive either." I took the vial. It was warm to the touch, almost alive. "What did you mean when you said she wants to know which one of us is real?" Dr. Morrison's face went gray. "The triplets weren't just identical," she said slowly. "They were more than that. They shared something deeper, a connection that went beyond biology. When two of them died, that connection didn't break, it just redistributed." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that you might not be as different from her as you think," she whispered. "Part of her has always been inside you, and part of you has always been inside her." I left Dr. Morrison's house as the sun was setting. The sky was the color of old blood, and the wind carried the scent of rain and decay. I drove through the empty streets, my mind racing with questions that had no answers. What did she mean about which one of us was real? How could part of her be inside me? And why did I feel like I was driving toward my own execution? The old medical college looked like a tomb. Most of the buildings had been abandoned for years, their windows boarded up, their walls covered in graffiti and decay. But Building C still had power. I could see light bleeding through the cracks in the boards. I found the basement entrance unlocked. The door opened with a sound like a dying breath. The basement was a maze of corridors and rooms, all painted the same institutional green that had probably been cheerful once, but now looked like mold. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting dancing shadows on the walls. I followed the sound of humming. It was a song I recognized from childhood, something my mother used to sing when she tucked me into bed. But hearing it now, in this place, made my skin crawl. The humming led me to a large room at the end of the corridor. It had once been a laboratory, but now it looked like a shrine. The walls were covered with photographs, hundreds of them. Pictures of me at every age, in every situation. Playing in the park as a child, walking to school as a teenager, graduating from college, at my first job, at my mother's funeral. She had been watching me my entire life. And there, in the center of the room, sitting at a desk covered with more photographs, was myself. She looked up when I entered, and for a moment, I felt like I was looking into a mirror. She was exactly like me in every way, down to the small mole on my left wrist and the way my hair fell across my forehead. But her eyes were different. They were my eyes, but they were empty, like looking into a well at midnight. "Hello, Sarah," she said, and even her voice was perfect. "I've been waiting for you." "You're her," I said. "You're baby girl Chen B." She smiled, and it was my smile, but wrong. "I prefer to think of myself as the real Sarah Chen," she said, "the one who earned the right to exist." "What do you mean?" She stood up and walked around the desk. Every movement was a perfect copy of how I moved. It was like watching a recording of myself. "Do you know what it's like to be born dead?" she asked. "To have no heartbeat, no breath, no warmth. To be nothing but aware darkness." She circled me slowly like a predator. They poked me with needles. They cut pieces of me away. They treated me like a specimen, not a person. But all the while, I could feel you out there living the life that should have been mine. "I didn't know," I whispered. "I didn't know you existed." "But I knew you existed," she said. "I felt every moment of your happiness, every laugh, every tear, every breath. And I hated you for it." She stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see myself reflected in her empty eyes. "But then I realized something," she continued. "I realized that you aren't the real Sarah Chen. You're just the one who happened to survive." "That's not true, isn't it?" she asked, tilting her head. "Tell me, Sarah, do you remember being born?" I stared at her, confused. No one remembers being born. "I do," she said. "I remember everything. The warmth of the womb, the pain of birth, the moment our souls were divided. Do you know what I think happened?" She leaned closer, and I could smell something wrong about her. Something like formaldehyde and decay. "I think you died," she whispered. "I think you were the one who was born without a heartbeat. But our connection was so strong that when they divided us, part of my consciousness jumped into your body. You've been living on borrowed life for 32 years. I stepped back, my heart pounding. "That's impossible." "Is it?" she asked. "Have you ever felt like something was missing? Like you were only half a person? Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like you were looking at a stranger?" The words hit me like physical blows. Because she was right. I had always felt incomplete. I had always felt like I was playing a role in my own life. "But that's about to change," she said. "Tonight, I'm going to take back what's mine." "How?" I asked, though I was terrified of the answer. She smiled again, and this time it was purely predatory. "By consuming you," she said, "by taking your memories, your experiences, your very essence into myself, then I'll be complete. I'll be the real Sarah Chen." I tried to run, but she was faster, impossibly fast. She grabbed my wrist, and her touch was like ice. "Look at the photographs," she said, forcing me to turn toward the wall. "Look at them closely." I looked, and my blood turned to ice. The photographs weren't just of me. They were of both of us. In every picture, there were two figures. Sometimes I was in the foreground, and she was in the background. Sometimes it was the other way around, but we were always together. You see, she said, you've never been alone. I've always been there, living in your shadow, sharing your life. But now it's time for me to step into the light. She began to change then. Her skin grew pale, almost translucent. Her hair became stringy and lifeless. Her eyes sank deeper into her skull. She was still me. But she was also something else, something that should have been dead. This is what I really look like, she said. This is what 32 years of borrowed existence has done to me. But when I take your life, I'll be beautiful again. I'll be whole. I remembered the vial in my pocket, Dr. Morrison's last resort. But as I reached for it, she grabbed my hand. I know about the poison, she said. I know about everything Dr. Morrison told you. I was listening. I've been listening to every conversation you've had for months. She leaned closer, and I could see my own face rotting beneath her skin. But what she didn't tell you, she whispered, is that the poison works both ways. If you use it on me, it will kill both of us. Because we're not separate people, we never were. We're two halves of the same soul. I didn't care. I couldn't live knowing she was out there, wearing my face, stealing my life. I smashed the vial against the floor, and the clear liquid spread across the concrete. The effect was immediate. She screamed, a sound like breaking glass, and her grip on my wrist loosened. But I felt it too, a burning sensation that started in my chest and spread through my entire body. You fool, she gasped, falling to her knees. You've killed us both. I knelt beside her, my own strength failing. The room was spinning, and I could taste copper in my mouth. Good, I whispered. If one of us has to die, then both of us should die. She looked at me with something that might have been respect. You're stronger than I thought, she said. Maybe you really are the real Sarah Chen. As the poison worked its way through our shared existence, I felt something strange happening. I could feel her memories mixing with mine. I could see her childhood in the laboratory, feel her pain and loneliness, and I could feel her feeling my childhood, my happiness, my love. For the first time in either of our lives, we were truly one person. I'm sorry, I said to her. I'm sorry you had to suffer. I'm sorry too, she replied. I'm sorry I hated you for living. We held each other as the poison consumed us both, two halves of the same soul, finally becoming whole in death. But here's the thing about twins, about souls that are divided. Sometimes death isn't the end. Sometimes it's just a transition. I woke up in a hospital bed 3 days later. The doctors said I'd been found in the basement of the old medical college, unconscious but alive. They said I'd been alone. There was no sign of anyone else, no sign of her. But I knew she was still there. I could feel her inside me, part of me now in a way she never had been before. Her memories were my memories. Her pain was my pain. Her hunger was my hunger. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw both of us looking back. The doctors released me after a week of observation. They said I was remarkably healthy for someone who had been through such an ordeal. They said I was lucky to be alive. But I knew better. I knew I wasn't lucky. I knew I wasn't even entirely alive. Because the truth is, we didn't both die in that basement. And we didn't both survive. We merged. We became something new. Something that was neither Sarah Chen nor baby girl Chen B. Something that was both. I went back to my apartment, back to my job, back to my life. But everything felt different now. Food tasted strange. Colors seemed muted. People looked at me oddly, as if they could sense something was wrong. And they were right. Something was wrong. I was hungry. Not for food, but for something else. Something I couldn't name. Something that felt like life itself. I found myself watching my coworkers, my neighbors, my friends, studying them, learning their habits, their mannerisms, their secrets, just like she had studied me. And sometimes late at night, I would catch myself in the mirror, but the reflection looking back wouldn't be mine. It would be hers, smiling that predatory smile, waiting, planning. You see, the thing about being the surviving twin is that you never really know if you're the one who actually survived. Maybe I'm Sarah Chen, and I absorbed her essence to become whole. Maybe she is baby girl Chen B, and she finally succeeded in taking my place. Or maybe we're both dead, and what's left is something else entirely. Something that wears Sarah Chen's face and lives Sarah Chen's life, but isn't really Sarah Chen at all. I don't know which is true. I don't think I ever will, but what I do know is that I'm getting stronger, more confident, more complete, and that hunger is growing. I've been watching a woman who lives in my building. Her name is Jennifer ... She's about my age, my height, my build. She lives alone just like I do. She has no family, no close friends. She would be perfect. I've been studying her routine, learning her habits. I know she takes her coffee black. I know she jogs every morning at 6. I know she has a small scar on her left knee from a childhood accident. I know everything about her. And soon, I'll be her. Tonight, I'm going to invite her over for dinner. I'm going to tell her I'm new to the building, that I'd like to be friends. She'll come because she's lonely, and loneliness makes people careless. And then, when she least expects it, I'll do to her what my sister tried to do to me. I'll consume her. I'll take her life, her memories, her very essence. And then I'll be Jennifer, and Sarah Chen will be just a memory. Just like baby girl Chen B. Just like baby girl Chen A. Just like all the others who came before. Oh, that's her now. Right on time. She's so punctual, so predictable. It's going to make this so much easier. I can see her through the peephole. She's wearing a blue dress, carrying a bottle of wine. She looks nervous, but excited. She has no idea what's waiting for her on the other side of this door. I'm smiling as I reach for the handle. It's my smile, but it's also her smile. The smile of someone who has learned to take what they want. The smile of someone who has learned to survive. "Hi, Jennifer," I say as I open the door. "I'm so glad you could make it." She steps into my apartment, and I close the door behind her. The lock clicks into place with a sound like a coffin closing. "I hope you're hungry," I say, still smiling. "Because I am God. I am so very, very hungry." And that's my story. The story of the third twin. The one who learned that survival isn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about being the one who's willing to do whatever it takes to keep existing. even if it means becoming something else entirely, even if it means consuming everything in your path, even if it means never knowing who you really are. So the next time you look in a mirror, remember this story. Remember that reflections can lie. Remember that the person looking back at you might not be you at all. They might be someone else entirely. Someone who has been waiting patiently for their chance to step out of the glass and into your life. Someone who looks just like you. Someone who is you. Someone who wants to be the only you. Sweet dreams.